Today I want to talk. I actually took some time to think about what to talk about today. This is different from what I spoke about in SF1. So I'm trying to kind of like observe all of you guys in the group chat and just watching you and just kind of pick things to talk about that I think you all need. I think this is one thing everybody needs today that's in front of me right now, I think. How to pivot in the early days. So I want to kind of go through a flow. It's like, just imagine this is like you, perhaps, maybe someone that you know, and they're going through this flow. You have an idea, right? You have this grand idea for something that you want to create. Maybe it's a school, a track, an app, whatever, right? You build the first version of that idea. You actually get it done, right? You make that first demo. You get people around you to check the idea out. So, you go to your friends, you go to your parents, you go to your grandparents, whatever it is, and you're like, hey, like, listen to this, check this out, blah, 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 right? So you're actually doing generally the correct things. People say stuff like this, they're just really impressed, and they give you like all that validation that you never knew that you even wanted and are now fiending for. And you feel like you're onto something. I think a lot of you in this room have felt this. So you feel like you're really onto something. And you actually keep making more of that idea. You keep going on that idea, right? Whatever that idea is. But a month later, it starts to feel kind of dead for some reason. It starts to like not really work in the way that you would have expected. Like that feeling that you had here is almost like you're almost chasing it now and you can't really get it back. And so again, you keep making more of the idea, you add to it, but a month later it's dead. And you no longer really have people who are checking your thing out, but you don't really know why, right? You're like, okay, like people said it was good. I thought I was onto the right track. I thought I just had to do more of that stuff, but now nobody's doing, now like the same things aren't happening. And so you kind of conclude that marketing is your problem. Like you have a marketing problem and you suck at marketing, and that's actually your main issue as like a maker of things. You post your thing everywhere. You post it on Reddit, and you get banned from like every subreddit. You post on your Facebook account from 2013. And someone, you're doing all these things and you just go ham, right? And you post on like 20 places, kind of just like spray and pray, right? Thinking like, okay, like, well, I have a marketing problem. And when I Google how to get my XYZ out there, people say to post on Reddit, people say to post on TikTok, people say all these things. So I'm going to do those things. And you do those things, right? This is actually not wrong, right? But you do these things. You get some more people coming in now, right? Like, okay, cool. Like, something kind of worked, like something's working maybe a little bit. I got like 10 more people, maybe 100 more people checking stuff out. But again, you aren't this viral success that you would have thought you would be, and you're just at that stage. So then you come here, a guy named Farza tells you to try TikTok, right? You got Steven showing you all this nonsense all the time, and you're like, damn, like this is working, like I can do this, and you're trying to like run after these trends. So you do this, right? You post every day for like 14 days straight, and you're getting no views. You get absolutely no views, and you are still not a viral success. You are just sad, and you think that everything you do is failing now. And you keep working on then your idea for like another 4 to 6 weeks before you either give up on the idea or just give up on working on your ideas completely, right? So this is the flow that I just showed you that is like a majority of people that I've seen making stuff, both in like startup land and then also like just me seeing people from SF1 and from Nights, just all types of people. I think everyone goes through the same exact flow at some point. And to me, it's like actually a cycle in a way. And again, this actually is like the classic cycle where you do this over and over and over again until like you either A, burn out, or you B, run out of ideas. Usually it's A, because it's obviously very difficult, right? This is a cycle you all have been through. This is a cycle some of you are actually in right now without even knowing it. So my goal is today to either A, help you see that. Actually, I can't name a single person in this room who's not in that cycle right now, so you're all there. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, thinking it'll work, and it ended up not working. Or you do this. Again, there's two things you're doing. Either A, you're doing this. You're doing the same thing over and over again, making very small adjustments, like tiny adjustments, thinking that it's going to work, or you're just trying wildly different shit every single day, every single hour, and then you're a master of nothing, and you just suck at everything. So I think none of you are above this cycle, including me. Either, an example I always put up is this project things we worked on at buildspace. We spent a year working on this product only for it to never change over a single year. And it did change, right? But it was such small little changes that it never made the actual impact that we expected it to make. And it was only until we got off this thing completely that things started to change for us. But we were stuck on this for a year. Like, it looked like this for almost a year. Nothing much changed. But we thought we were making big changes, but really they weren't. We were just making like these little tiny steps every single week, and it was doing fine, but it wasn't doing as good as it could have been. Or we would do these things where it's like massive pivots, like massive changes. So for example, at Zip School, I was fully guilty of this, where I was trying wildly different stuff every 2 weeks. I remember 1 week we were doing this, where we hired a bunch of teachers. We had like 50 teachers on the platform, and they would live stream themselves. And then maybe another week, I'd be like, fuck this, I want to make a mobile app. And now I'm making a mobile app that teaches kids about dragonflies, apparently. And again, like, this is still the same idea, like teaching kids about things that they're curious about. That was the goal of the Zip School. But like, you can't just be doing this for 1 month, which is such a deep idea, by the way, hiring teachers and getting them to, stream themselves and teach kids, teach kids on like a Twitch-like setting. And then this idea, which is like almost like a mobile game that we were making, right? They're so different. But like, again, this is month 1, this is month 2. And we'd be doing these ideas wildly by the end. Like, we'd be making these wild changes every almost 8 to 12 weeks, pretty much, which is insane. So yeah, I see some of you stuck in this cycle already. I think it's most of you, maybe 99%. And today's lecture is actually, I said this lecture is about how to pivot in the early days, but it's actually about something I'm just going to call calibrating. I think this is very different from the word pivoting. I hate using existing terminology because a lot of you already know what the word pivot means in the business sense, and you're already kind of biased. So let me kind of break your definition for a second. This is what pivot means. In the business context, to completely change the way in which one does something. There's a key word there. Can anyone tell me what it is? Yes. Completely. The key word is completely. Completely change. That is what a pivot is. But then there's another cool word in the dictionary called calibrate, which is really to adjust based on experimental results, to take external factors into account and to allow comparison with other data. Now, I would ask yourself, what do you actually need to do? Do you need to do this or do you need to do this, right? Most of you need to do this at this point because just shifting back and forth, or rather shifting too much will just cause you to learn nothing. So you actually need to kind of just adjust a little bit every single day, every single week. So I'll give you an example of like a pivot, right? A big pivot to me is like us going from Zip School to buildspace. Like that's like, we changed like everything, right? So that's like a large pivot. Calibrating is more like this, right? Like Nights and Weekends, season 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That's us making these like very specific changes over a year. Like kind of small and medium changes over a full year to make this program better called Nights and Weekends, right? And then we ended on S4 to what we felt like was one of the best versions of that product. So in reality, what is calibrating? It's actually just a bunch of mini pivots. That's all it is. So now that's kind of, so whenever I use the word calibrate, I kind of just want you to think about it as a mini pivot, right? Mini pivots are just, again, something like this. Like, remember from S3 to S4, one mini pivot we did was, we're not going to do guest lectures anymore. Like, we're not going to bring in people for talks. We felt like, that wasn't that interesting, and if it was gone, no one's going to complain about it. And we were right. And there were a bunch of these little changes that we made every single time. Can you tell me what this is? I'm just curious. From yes? Anyone? Yes, Ali?
It's just you're training a neural network.
Yeah, this is the training graph of a neural network. Neural network, very actually simple. It has a problem that it wishes to solve, and over time it's trained to solve that problem based on the data that you give it, right? And generally it solves that problem over a long time, right? So the bottom here, we'll call it just time, right? You give it more time, it's called steps in machine learning. You give it more steps, and it'll eventually get really good. So the blue line is essentially saying that this is how wrong it is, and this is less wrong. And over many more steps, the machine learning model gets kind of good at not being wrong. And it's still wrong at some level, right? But it's less wrong over time. That's kind of how I think about me doing stuff. There's many problems at buildspace, and many problems when you're making things. And it's always worth asking yourself, where are you on this graph? A lot of times, are you getting closer to an end goal, an end solution there, right? Because again, the goal for a neural network is to get good at not being wrong, right? And I think that's kind of how you all should think about your work as well. You're not ever gonna, your goal shouldn't be right. It should just be really good at not getting wrong, at not being wrong. But I think it's worth showing a different graph now, which some of you guys may know too. But in reality, machine learning and AI is like a multi-dimensional problem, right? It's like your problems are actually vastly complex. It's not as simple as just get good and we're done. Your problems are complex, whether you're making music, a product, whatever. It's like hundreds of decisions you got to figure out in a given week. Hundreds of things you got to say yes or no to. Like, do I post there? Do I post here? Do I make that type of content, this type of content? Does the beat drop here or there? The onboarding flow, do they pay there or not, etc. Right? The number of problems that you have to deal with is it's in the thousands. It's probably even in the millions. But you can probably handle a couple hundred in a week. And I'm showing this because in reality, let's just say this is your problem set, right? This is actually your millions of problems in a graph. Generally, where you want to get to, if you're an AI, is you want to get to here. You want to get to a minimum, which is you are minimally wrong all the time, depending on the problem that you give it, right? Now, what's interesting here is there's a bunch of valleys, there's a bunch of mountains here, right? So it's you may think that you're actually right, but you're actually maybe right here. But you don't even know that you could be even more right. That sort of makes sense? And it's essentially trying to understand that you may right now be at a point where you think you're doing great shit and you got it figured out and you got something going, but you're maybe right here. And you don't even know. It's because you don't know that this exists. So it's almost and this is where you really have to zoom out and really understand where you're at, in the valley of problems that you are encountering. I want to give you a couple examples here because I know this example is a little bit, maybe you didn't get it, maybe you just fell through, but I want to give you a couple of other examples of people who both had a lot of mini pivots, but then also had these really big pivots. Because again, if all you do is these little mini pivots, you're boop, 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 you're taking little steps, maybe you end up right here, right? But sometimes you gotta take a big step, and then maybe you end up right here. And then you take a bunch of mini steps, and then you end up right here, if you do a big one. And then you keep on going down till you actually solve the problem, right? This is PewDiePie. PewDiePie, in his early days, took a lot of small steps. PewDiePie is my favorite creator, one of my favorite founders, blah, 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 right? I'm guessing most of you guys know him. He's a YouTuber, and he made gaming videos in the early days. And he got really good at figuring out the steps he needs to take to make good videos. And he actually did in his early days, he actually did a lot of the same thing. But it was never always the same. He was always changing the game he was playing. He was changing the people he was playing with. He was taking these small steps. But he also, over time, started taking these much bigger steps. Why? It's because he started to actually want to change his content. Nowadays, PewDiePie makes videos about his life. And that's very different from the videos he used to make, where he'd just scream at a camera and be scared when he got scared in a game, right? But again, he had to take the small steps, and he had to take also these giant leaps as well, these giant big steps, these pivots, these larger pivots, I'd call them, while these are more mini pivots. Another example, iPhone comes out. iPhone for a decade is really, to me, just a bunch of mini, medium pivots, right? iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever we're at right now. They got progressively better, right? But you could argue these weren't large scale pivots for a company like Apple until this drops. And now you're oh, cool, that's a large leap. And they had to take that large leap because iPhone sales aren't doing so hot anymore. So they got to figure some new stuff out. Linkin Park, if you know them, my favorite bands, their first 4 albums were essentially kind of just very small steps forward, I think, right? Until they finally are growing up and they take these massive steps in early 2010 where their sound completely shifts. And now they're And now, yeah, they're no longer making the stuff they were making in 2005, which was like metal rap. And then in 2015, they're singing like ballads. And sure, a lot of their fan base could say like, oh wow, Linkin Park XYZ is trash now. But to me, I saw this and I was like, wow, like the people I saw when I was a kid are not growing up. And to me, like it was an evolution, right? And again, this caused Linkin Park to find greater success in the mainstream as they changed. This is one more example. This is my buddy Sharif. Some of you guys have seen him already around. He was working on this thing called debuild for 2 years. He was working on this thing, 2 whole years. He was taking very small steps. I talked about this with him recently, and he said, yeah, he felt like he took steps that were too small every week. He was never making like very large changes, ever. It was always like iterative, very tiny steps, but never ending up really anywhere that great. Until he finally makes his website called Lexica, which was a massive pivot. He literally changes his whole company from this, which is something else, to this in literally a week. And then this ends up getting like millions of people to start using it in a given month. But again, he had to take a very large jump. Do you see what I'm saying? And so what I'm trying to say is pivoting is not bad. It is extremely important. It can be done in very bad ways, but it's very important. And I think you all witnessed us do this great pivot on Sunday. Well, in my opinion, a great pivot. This is indeed a pivot, right? This is me telling you that things are changing in a medium to large way. It is not a small thing, right? It's not me taking like a little, like boom, right? It's like, this is me like jumping across the stage or trying my best to jump across the stage. So for us, yeah, this is a very large pivot. I wouldn't say it's like a pivot in the sense of like zip school to buildspace, right? But it's still pretty large. And yeah, I think we did this because we felt like the mini pivots weren't enough anymore, right? We were tired of just doing these mini pivots on nights and weekends, and we felt like we got as far as possible with nights and weekends as we could. And now we needed to like take a larger leap if we were to solve the problem in a bigger way. And again, if nights and weekends got us here, right? Let's just say it got us here. So we started here, took all these small steps, and ended up here. Great. Now it's like, okay, we're here. Now we're stuck, right? How do we get here? How do we actually get to the bottom of like, the maze? And we feel like, okay, like if we take a big jump and we announce this new product, XYZ, maybe we end up over here, and now we have a chance of getting down there. Otherwise, we'll forever be stuck in nights and weekends land right here, and we'll never get out. And that's called a local minima in like math, right? So you don't want to get caught in this local minimum in where you're at. You want to be caught, you want to go to, what is it called, the global maxima or global minima? Yeah, so you want to get to the global minima in this case. And yeah, I would ask yourself, are you in the local minima? Like, are you stuck somewhere right now? Or is there a possible place for you to go that's more interesting? And for all of you, it's likely the latter. So yeah, you got to be good at pivoting, both medium ones, big ones, and small ones. And they all just really do work together. A lot of people just think I'm either do a pivot or I don't. But it's not really like that. There's like, you could be pivoting every single hour of every day if you wanted to. They all just kind of work together. But I do want to kind of make this part clear. And I kind of said this earlier, but let me tell you why your ideas won't work, like the reality where they don't work. It's only 2 things. Either A, you pivoted too much. You took these big leaps, you took these big leaps everywhere, and you really ended up nowhere. Or you didn't pivot much at all, and then you just didn't change much, and nothing else changed on the outside, and you didn't really get anywhere. I think I can't teach you all how to pivot. Like I can't give you like these general step-by-steps, but what I can teach you or even tell you about today is just some basic questions you can ask yourself. And that I ask myself, and that questions that I've learned over some time that are helpful. This is kind of one question. It's worth just taking 30 seconds and thinking about this internally. What do you hold on to strongly? Like really, like think about that right now. Like in your work, what do you hold on to strongly? And take like 10 seconds to come up with an answer in your head. And then I would think further. I would think, what do you hold on to loosely? What can you change right now? You don't give a fuck. You just like, I can make that adjustment, that change, and I'm not attached. It could just, if it was there, and if it, like for example, I'm not going to buy some examples right now, but it's the things you're just not very attached to, at all. You just hold very loosely. And I would think about some things right now, so hopefully you all have some stuff in your brain. I'm curious, what do you hold into strongly? Anybody? Like, what is that for you?
Like connecting community, like connecting people with food trucks. Like,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Like your whole thing is about connecting communities, in this case through food trucks. Great, love that. Anybody else? Strongly, yes. Making films, that is a great thing to hold strongly. Anybody else? Yes.
Some people need shopping assistance.
Huh?
Some people need shopping assistance.
You believe shopping is hard and you want to help fix that. Great, yeah, that's a good thing to hold strongly. Yes.
Progressively making something different than I have made.
Yeah, so like never like being okay with the same. It's a good thing to hold strongly. I like that. One more.
Cloud is complex and code is the answer.
Cloud is complex and code is the answer. You hold that strongly. Okay, sure. No, great. No, there's nothing wrong with that. It's good, actually. You need to know what you hold strongly, right? And now, maybe raise your hand and tell me if you all hold loosely, Yeah, Rohit. Money? You hold money loosely, okay? Huh?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Like whatever technology medium, like website, form, app, I don't care.
You do not care what the technology is. It's a great thing to hold loosely. Yes.
The design of my UI.
The design of your UI, it's a great thing to hold loosely. It's a good design, though. Yes?
The type of topics I tackle.
The type of topics that you tackle, just whatever, right? And let's do two more.
This is bad, but my users.
Your users? Yeah, like you generally hold loosely what people think about you, maybe. Sure, great. I kind of hold that kind of loosely too, so it's okay. Maybe do one more. Messaging. Product messaging is held loosely. Okay, like you're okay to change that up, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Great, yeah, great. So I think, great, that's really good. Like the answers you guys gave me are actually pretty solid. Sometimes you'll hold on to things really strongly and you'll never question it. I'll go through a couple of examples, two examples actually. This is Ali's, right? This is his product, right? Now, maybe today, this is what he holds strongly, right? He says, I'm just making this up, right? I'm not gonna, this is just making it up. But maybe today strongly, Ali says, I just really wanna, I wanna make really great technology for lawyers in AI. Really great AI technology for lawyers, right? Or for people in law, right? Like that is like a high level kind of strong feeling that he has, and that's great. But let's say what's very loose. This is kind of loose. It's a product that helps lawyers make arguments. That is something he can hold very loosely. Who knows if it's a product that helps lawyers make arguments? Maybe it's a product that helps like the assistants of lawyers answer emails. Maybe it's a product that helps lawyers get new clients with AI. Like, we don't fucking know. At the end of the day, this is what you hold strongly, so go after that. But you don't need to like lock yourself into this thing, right? That you can hold loosely, like how you actually solve the thing that you hold strongly, I'll give you one more example. This is Niyati. She made this video, great video, popped up on my Instagram. And I think strongly is something like this, right? Again, I'm making this up. Maybe she feels strongly. I want to help people be more in touch with their emotions, right? Like that is something that that is the reason she's making stuff, right? She wants to like accomplish this and get better at this. Great, it's a great thing to hold strongly. This is very loose. She does that via 20 to 30 second short form content. Dude, who knows? You don't have to hold that strongly, right? You don't have to feel like I have to go and grind out these 10-second videos now every day. Maybe it's long form 10-minute videos. Maybe it's not videos at all. Maybe the better way to go after this is like to create a network of vetted therapists and then create like a system to connect therapists to people who need help. Maybe it's a nonprofit that does something like that. Again, what's important is like you're not getting locked into like a certain way of solving something or a certain like path of solving something. You should keep your mind open at all times. Like at any time, if it feels like you're just grinding these out just to grind them out, yeah, I would ask yourself like, is this really the best way forward? Or do I need to take a large pivot and do something a little bit differently? But again, generally the things that you hold loosely are the things that you can pivot on a lot. Again, if I go back to Ali here, yeah, he can pivot this all day, right? Maybe today it's a product that helps lawyers do X, and tomorrow it's a product that helps lawyers do Y. It actually doesn't matter as long as, because Ali holds this strongly, right? And same with this. It could be a network of therapists. It could be really great videos that Niyati herself makes. It could be local events that she runs, right? Doesn't matter, actually. She can pivot around as long as but this needs to stay constant, because that's actually what is like the core that's holding it all together. And yeah, I think a lot of times y'all will hold on to things that make no sense, and it makes no sense. And I'll go through some examples later too, but I would ask yourselves, what are some things that you're holding on to for no reason? Because there's definitely some stuff. Because if you just keep holding on to things, you won't open yourself up to other ideas, right? You're just fully locked into that one thing. For example, maybe someone comes up to you and gives you a great idea to market yourself a different way, but you're just so locked into whatever you're already doing that you don't even entertain that possibility. And I'll give you a really basic framework that I use nearly every day. Again, these slides will be online, so you guys can check it out after. But every morning, just ask yourself, what's changing today? That's really what I ask myself, like, what is changing today? Like, it's not even like a yes or no, it's like, what is changing today? I also ask myself, what needs to be looked at from first principles again? And I'll tell you how this looks in practice when I do it. But that's generally my question, what changes today? Like, what is changing today? And I think if you wake up every morning and you go into your day with like that kind of mindset, you'll force yourself to think about what needs to change. And again, it could be a very tiny change, like the tiniest of changes. Like, what maybe changes is like the headline on your landing page, Maybe it's a medium change, maybe it's a large change, right? But something should be changing on a daily basis. And again, I think from there, first I figure out if something needs to change, right? It's like, I have this thought in my mind of something having to change. From there, you have to just decide, okay, like now, do I actually do that? Like, do I actually go for it? And how do you figure that out, right? And these are 3 questions that I always ask myself before I make any big change. 1, what do others say about the change when I tell them about it? Like just my friends, the team. Maybe I show some of you all, raise your hand if we've shown you a video already, like in a demo video. Yeah, like I think we showed like 7 of you most of our videos before we decided if they were any good, right? Because we were constantly changing them. I think Abel, you saw the video like 3 times, and we changed it 3 times because we weren't happy with the reaction at some points. What does your intuition say? I think that's really important. Like, really, I don't want to bring heart into this too much, but what feels good to you? What feels right to you? And what's finally, this should be 90% of your decision is what does the data say, right? On that decision, no matter what you're doing. So, for example, if you come in the morning and you're like, and you're Ryan, and you're like, actually, I'm not going to make t-shirts anymore. I'm going to make pants. That's the pivot. That's the change I'm going to make. Again, what do others say? Are they interested in that? What does my intuition say about that? And what's the data say about that? Do I got some pre-orders for pants coming in? Because then it's easier to make that call. Otherwise, you're just making a random decision, and it may be emotional. It may not be logical. And I think this is the main thing that I'm very guilty of as well. I'm generally very emotional when it comes to just like work. So I need to always like catch myself and be like, okay, like am I being logical about what I'm doing? Because why are we going from zip school to buildspace? Like there needs to be a reason. It can't just be like because I feel like it. That's just going to cause you to jump around a bunch and then not get anywhere. So yeah, you gotta balance the logic and the emotion. I generally say most decisions should be 90% logic, 10% emotion. Shouldn't ever be 0% emotion. This is an example of just like a bunch of mini pivots, right, that we did on our Instagram, right? Where every single day, Josh would come in and we would look at what we did the previous day. We would look at the data, we would look at what people said, and we'd decide, okay, do we do that again or do we do something different? And almost always it was doing something different. And shorts this is really fun for us because the feedback loop is so fast, right? You literally every day get 1 hour every day, and then the next day decide what changes, right? And that's a very important question. Most people will just like take this format, like we figured out, and then grind out like 30 of them. And it's like, the fuck? It didn't work the first time, so why do you expect it to work the 29th time? Instead, like, what if you made certain adjustments on a daily basis? Again, perfect example of like mini pivots on like a daily basis. This example of like a more medium pivot, right? Like we don't post on Twitter anymore as buildspace. Why? Sure, internally it feels at some level that like algorithm is changing, we're not getting as much traffic, blah, blah, blah. It feels like that, right? Great, that's not a real answer, actually. The real answer is just the data. Our traffic coming in from Twitter is so similar to our traffic coming in from Instagram, and Instagram takes like 5 to 10x less effort from us, which is insane, right? Twitter is so difficult to actually create good content on Twitter. And we're not even getting that much out of it. Instead, we're getting way more out of our Instagram. This was in December, which we just started, right? So the data was obvious for us too. So we're like, okay, we feel like this is a boomer platform now. We'll be around. We'll do stuff on there for sure. But we feel like we're getting a lot more interest from this other place. So we made that pivot, right? And that's very important because otherwise, we're just going to keep doing Twitter badly, like half-assed. And that's worse than just not doing it at all, in my opinion. You should always just be doing what you feel like really strongly about. And yeah, I think these honestly, it's not the big pivots that are going to make you all. It's going to be the medium ones usually. Usually the medium ones. And I think one thing that you can always kind of like have is every day kind of coming in with like this beginner's mind where you just ask yourself, what needs to change today? What do I need to look at again from scratch? And that's some questions you have to ask. These are some basic questions you can ask yourself. What was the slide before? Yeah, sometimes you'll get caught in doing certain things and you'll forget why you even originally started doing them. For example, like many of you I see online right now making like videos on Instagram. Why? Like really, like I would ask you have to have a good reason. And I think a lot of you probably don't have a good reason. I'm not saying posting on there is bad. It's more like what's bad is not having really good answers to hard questions about why you're doing something. So for example, some hard questions. Why am I doing this action? For example, yesterday I spent 4 hours making a tweet about our investor update, right? And I asked myself, like, why am I doing this? Does this action actually still make sense? Like, should I still be tweeting my stuff like this? Like, is that actually the right way? Or should this be like a video? Or should this be something completely different? What other actions can I take? Or is this literally the best action I have right now? So no matter what you're doing on a given day, it's worth asking yourself these 3 questions. Yeah, I mean, for example, like maybe your action is like, I don't know, posting on Reddit, right? Why are you doing that? Does it still make sense? Is that the best action possible? Like the best action that's possible in your current arsenal, right? Because if it is, amazing. Go for it and do it, right? Otherwise, you're just doing it to do it all of a sudden. And you'll get caught in that. You won't even know you're getting caught in that. And that's what's so hard about this. Yeah.
So when you are working with whatever project that you have, and you have like a larger vision and then maybe smaller tasks that need to get done, like how do you prioritize, like what should I be doing right now, today, in this?
Yeah, I mean, I have a talk I do later about how to make decisions on stuff like that. I just pick one. I just pick one, yeah. Flip a coin sometimes. Yeah. Really, yeah. I'll talk about that later, but I just pick one. I only do one thing. Sometimes you have to do a pretty large pivot. Sometimes the medium ones aren't cutting it, right? And you have to do this really carefully because like you're kind of in this airplane, right? And if you pull the wrong switch, you may just nosedive and you may just never be able to catch yourself. So for larger pivots, I always say you should talk to us. You should talk to Ahmed. You should talk to one of us about that move. For example, like a big move may be like, I don't know, Kat going from making music to wanting to make an app now, or like Dev going from wanting to help students start businesses to like making like an AI hardware product, something. I don't know. Those are very large moves, and those aren't wrong moves by any means, right? But it's like really think through them. Like, why are you doing this? And you have to have really good answers. So by Friday, you all have to be off 0, because technically Monday, your 0 is whatever you were at yesterday morning. So that's like your 0. So you're at 0 again, and you're going to be at 0 every day, every week until the end. So you can't get Daniel to pay for your app again. I'm sorry. That cheat code, some of you all figured it out, but you won't be able to do it again. And you're going to have to try some new stuff. So what are you going to do? You're going to have to keep exploring. And I just want to make sure you all take steps that aren't too small, but also aren't too big. That's for sure. But I think most of us are, victim to the taking steps that are too small, generally. I would love for some of you all to take larger steps, but I think most people are usually are usually afraid of taking larger steps, so they'll end up taking smaller steps. You want to kind of be in the middle, and that's all I got. Any questions?